Hello, hello. As you get here, make sure that you say hello and let me know you're here as I'm going live in the different places. Now let me pull this up on my phone and make sure that it is showing up properly. Let me make sure. All right, it says I'm live. Let's just check it out. Not showing yet. All right, let me try it again. Hold on a second. Here we go. Perfect. Let me pull this. All right, one more little thing. All right, hello, hello. And as like I said, as you get here, make sure that you say hello and let me know that you're here. I'm going to share the affirmation and journal prompt in a moment. But I wanted to start out with, like I said, as you get here, let me know you're here and let me know where you're calling or not calling in. Listen, you think I'm on the radio or something, where you're signing in from. And then I'm going to go ahead and get started because I'm kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about today for Monday motivation is one of the things that's been showing up for me in my life is looking at what I'm doing as the task and things that I'm doing. Where am I coming from flow and where am I coming from task that somebody said I need to do, right? And so our affirmation, let me grab it real quick. Our affirmation, and they are longer today, so I will be putting them in the description. Let's see, let me take this off, see if it'll go in there. All right, cool. So let me put this here. All right, so our affirmation for today is, I trust the flow of inspired action within me. When I move from authentic passion and purpose, time expands, my energy multiplies, and everything I touch becomes infused with meaning and magic. So, how does that feel? Does it feel true? So, there's three things that I wanted to touch on. And it's like I said, it's about inspired action versus task completion. So I've got a note here with all the different tasks that I'm supposed to do for the day. And sometimes I can get so caught up in that I don't take time to just tap in to my inner guidance, right? But the thing is that when you do, it's magic. So our energy source are different. So the reason that I'm talking about inspired action versus task, it's how the energy shows up within us. So I'm trying to watch and see, and I see that I got some people watching. Thank you for being here. And if you want to join in the conversation and share with me, give me a heart or whatever, just do that. And if you're on YouTube, you can say hello and let me know that you're here as well. So back to the story, right? So task, which we have, that's our to-do list, right? That's draining because that actually, it's working through willpower and our external motivation. So you're pushing against resistance. Whereas differently, it goes with inspired action, just kind of flows from this internal alignment and this authentic desire of what you really want. So you're being pulled forward by something meaningful. So this is why You can work for hours on a passion project and feel energized, while 30 minutes of forced productivity leaves you totally exhausted. And I can speak on this right now because right now I am writing a book, and I've mentioned it to you guys before because I was asked over a year ago if I would write a book in this series, and I said yes. But for whatever reason, I would get some things done, and then it was like I wasn't I'd get bored with it, or I'd get a little lost, all these different things, and I just kept putting it on the back burner. And I had index cards full of stuff. So anytime a thought, it was on my mind a lot. So every time I had a thought, I would write it on index cards. And I did have some stuff written out in a Word document, but I wasn't really getting into it. So recently I was thinking about the characters that were on my little index cards and that I had started in the Word document, and some of the things that I wanted them to be able to do in this book. And as I started playing with it, I started getting kind of excited. And so I even told one of my friends yesterday that it's almost become this compulsion because I'm dreaming about these characters. I'm dreaming about things for them to do and how they react to things. So then I'm getting up and I'm going to the computer and I'm typing this stuff out. And then I'm going and I'm putting it into a Google document and I'm checking the grammar and things. And then I'm going back, and the time seems like it goes just like that because I'm doing it with an inspired action. Whereas when I first started it, it felt like a task. It felt like I was using willpower and that external motivation to get it done, right? So it felt like I could be on the computer for about 10, 15 minutes. And I thought, gosh, how long has it been? And I would look at my watch and I'd think, oh my gosh, I haven't been here any time. And I feel like I want to stop. And so I would stop and go do something else. That's why it's been a year for me to even get to the place where I was really working on it. And I'll just share, it's outside of my comfort zone. That may be part of why it's been this kind of experience, but it's actually an apocalyptic novel. It's not even the type of material I normally read. But when I was asked to do this, it was from a person that I had on my podcast, and he writes this kind of book, and he's writing in a series with a lot of other authors. It's each author has a different book, so it's not a multi-author book, but it's a series of a lot of different authors putting in stories about this particular event that happens in the world. And so I kept coming at it from a place of writing like they were writing and what was happening in the world, right? But what ended up happening to me was I started daydreaming about how could I make the story more me, right? How could I take this adventure that these people are having, not Russia, it's a catastrophe that happens in the world, and how can I make my characters come at it from a different place? And that's when it became an inspired thing. Because for those that know me, I'm a life coach and a hypnotist, right? So in my book, with this catastrophe in the world, there's hypnosis. There's all different kinds of things that are happening that move these characters around. And so now I've got 18 chapters written, and now I'm going in and I'm tweaking them. But like I said, I'm dreaming about them at night. And it feels like I sit down and suddenly I realize I haven't eaten yet because I'm so involved. So is there any passion project that maybe you've been working on, or is there something you've been avoiding because you've been coming at it from this willpower and external motivation place, from the task completed versus the inspired action? Because I'm telling you, it has really, really been showing up big time in my life how different that is, right? So I trust the flow of inspired action within me. When I move from my authentic passion and purpose time expands, my energy multiplies, and everything I touch becomes infused with meaning and magic. And I'm not finished with the book yet because I keep thinking of new things to happen in there. So I keep going in and tweaking it a little bit. And I don't know. I'm hoping it'll be complete within the next few weeks, but I'm giving myself permission to flow with inspired action and not making it a task driven activity, because I know from this experience with this book that that's when I shut down. That's when it feels like things are a chore, right? So, what do you think? And time perception shifts completely when we're doing this, right? When you're working from inspired action. Because when you're the inspired flow, you enter what psychologists call the flow state. Oof, I just love the flow state. It's where your prefrontal cortex actually downregulates, and this quiets your inner critic. And time tracking mechanisms kind of take a back seat. And that's what creates that magical experience where hours feel like minutes. When you're fully present rather than watching the clock, which makes it paradoxically more you moving productivity and being creative. And like I was sharing this morning, and I've been talking about it for days, and everybody I've talked to in the past week, it's like, well, I'm working on my book and this is exciting. I'm getting excited. This is really moving, and it feels so good, right? And it might not be a book for you guys. Maybe it's something totally different. And so I would love if you want to put something in the chat and let me know what is showing up for you as I'm talking about this. Is there something in your life right now that you feel like it's a drudgery that you have to do? And how can you flip it around to make it come from that flow state, that inspired action? Any thoughts? And another point I wanted to make too was quality over quantity emerges naturally. So when you're coming at something from inspired action, it naturally prioritizes the depth and the meaning over checking boxes. Like when I first started working on this book, when I was first asked to do it, I was excited. It was like, yeah, I want to do that. But then when I sat down in front of the computer and started writing things out, it was like, I don't know, do I know how to write this book? And then I had somebody say, well, just start writing. And then somebody said, well, just do some voice notes. So I started doing these different things, but they still weren't coming together. It still felt like it was a drudgery. And I really had to sit back and play with that. And how can I take this and make it, instead of it being through mediocre task, how could I make it something real, something of real value? And that's when work itself becomes a form of meditation and self-expression, right? And so as I really played with this in my mind, and I did a little bit of self-hypnosis too, I will say, to try to get me into the right headspace. But as soon as I stepped away from having to create this story from the way everybody else was coming at it, that it was okay to come at it in a different way. And I'll be honest, when the publisher reads it, it may not be what they want. I don't know. But if it's not, I'm in love with these characters in this book so much that I'll just change the name of it and maybe a little particulars, and then I'll do it on my own because I'm having so much fun doing it. But like I said in the beginning, I had a little checklist. I even bought a project display board like you use when you're in school and you've got one of those projects that you have to do, you know, the little tribe board. I even got one of those, set it up to put the timeline on there and everything. And it was feeling like such a rigid thing. And it was when I gave that away and said, okay, it has to start on this date, and that's okay. The rest of it, it's up to me. I don't have to follow anything else. I can just make this story. And it has become so much fun. And I feel relaxed while I'm doing it. And I've really been surprised with some of the thoughts that come to me, the things that about these characters. And as I was doing it, I ended up having to feed a bunch of this stuff to ChatGPT and say, help me with creating this timeline of when things are happening, because I was into it so much that I started losing track. Well, wait a minute. Did this happen on this day? When did this happen? And then I kept having to go back. So I said, help me create this timeline. So ChatGPT created the timeline for me. And then we made a list of all the characters that I'd already put in there so that I could look and see how old are they, what do they look like, and without having to go back and read. So I was learning how to do some of these little tips and tricks, and other people may do it totally different, but that's what I decided to do to help me to feel like it was a relaxing process to go through, right? So wait a minute, I'm going to go ahead and grab the journal prompt real quick. And this one is longer, so it may not all show up, but I will, like I said, I will put it in the description of this live so you can look at it. Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. Hold on. All right. So it did break it into two parts. So I'll tell you what the other part is. Okay. So our journal prompt is, think of a time when you were completely absorbed in something you loved, like me writing the book, right? When time seemed to disappear. I mean, I was forgetting to eat. I was forgetting to go to the bathroom. I was just so into it, right? And then compare that feeling to doing a task you were forcing yourself through. I just explained that, how at the beginning I was forcing myself to do this checklist of things. And I kept looking back at the timeline that they had given me and kept thinking that I needed to make sure that on this day, when they said something happened in the world, that I had to talk about that day. And it was very rigid, right? And then what was different about your energy and focus? My energy was depleted, really. I was getting tired very, very easy. And then my focus was not there because I was spending a lot of time daydreaming about something else. And I would stop and go do something, which when I was really in the flow, I had to remind myself to stop, right? So how can you bring more of that flow state into your daily life? How can you? So I want you to think that as you're looking at your journal prompt, and what I always say, let me go back with our affirmation, I trust the flow of inspired action within me. When I move from my authentic passion and purpose, time expands, energy multiplies, and everything I touch becomes infused with meaning and magic. Put that on your screensaver on your phone, the index card, put it on a sticky note, put it somewhere that you're going to see it so that you are reminded that you are in trust and flow, right? And then when we look at our journal prompt, we want to take our journal out, our notebook out, put the affirmation, the journal prompt, put the date, and then write it all out and say it out loud. And then you set the timer for 10 to 15 minutes. You just focus on your breath, getting into that relaxed quality place, right? You almost get into this meditative place, allowing that inner guidance to come up. And when the timer goes off, you just start writing. So one of the things I want to ask you is when you're writing this out, think of a time when you were completely absorbed in something you loved, when time seemed to disappear. Not only that, I want you to think when you were in that place where you were in the flow, when time seemed to disappear, how did your body feel? What thoughts were present, right? And then I want you to actually contrast it, comparing that feeling to doing a task you were forcing yourself to do. So, what felt different about your body? If it was the energy different, your creativity and sense of time in both experiences? And then what does this tell you about how you want to approach your goals in your daily life? For me, it showed me that being in that I gotta do state, it's not always productive. No. So there's a lot said for, that old saying, you got to slow down to speed up. And that's how I felt. And I feel today. I had to slow down and reconnect with why do I want to write this book? Why do I feel like it's a good story? Why do I feel that it's going to be well received? I don't know. The thing that whether it will be or not, like I said, mine is a little bit different than any of the others in this series that I saw, but I'm coming at it from a different place. I'm a woman, not to say there aren't other women authors in there are, but I'm a hypnotist and a transformational coach. So what my characters are doing and going through are a little bit different. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And I'll share one of the things that has happened a few times. It's like I will daydream or I'll go to sleep at night, and when I wake up, I've dreamed of a new character. And a few times I've got up and came in here and added this new character in. And then later, when I would go back and I would look at things and I think, well, it's like this person dropped out of the sky. Where did they come from? And then I have to start retracing and redoing and everything. But it's fun as I'm dealing with all of that. So I don't know if you guys that are watching, if any of you have written fictional books. But it's definitely been enlightening, to say the least. And just a reminder, on Thursday, the 29th, which is this Thursday at, is it 8 p.m.? At 8 p.m., I have my good friend April Berry that is going to be sharing her new book, and she's a romance author. And she actually introduced me to this book. I will share The Emotion Thesaurus, because she was saying that sometimes she needed help with that. And so I bought it, and it has been so helpful with me writing this book to be able to say in just what the characters are doing and their facial expressions to express an emotion without me having to say, oh, he's sad. It's been really good. And so I've enjoyed that. So if you are going to be a writer, or you're thinking about being a writer, then you want to be able to express your characters better, grab that book. And there's several different books with that. So I'm going to be looking and seeing about getting some of the other ones. But and I'm setting this book up with a cliffhanger so that there'll be a book two. I know I'm talking about this book right now, but it's because it's a great representation about where this affirmation and journal prompts came from, right? Because I really started recognizing how hard it was to write the book when I was coming at it as a task. And when I switched it around to where it was coming from the heart and from inspired place, very different story. And I know We all have those stories. I have others, but this is the one that I'm experiencing right now. So, like I said, share in the comments later if you want to let me know what is one thing that you have been struggling with because it felt like it was a daunting task, and how can you flip that to be doing it from an inspired place, that slowing down to speed up. All right. So you guys are very quiet today. You're here, but you're not talking. So has anybody got anything to say before I close up? I'm looking. All right then, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you more than you know. And thank you guys that are watching on YouTube as well. All right. So let's look at this really, really well. Do your affirmation, your journal prompt, and have an exceptionally inspired day. And I will see you Wednesday. Mwah.